Kelly, are you speaking on employee?
No, I'm reading comments and then I'll be here for questions if you have any questions that are.
All right,
Oh,
getting started here. Welcome to the Tuesday, October 13th board meeting, our regular board meeting. Ms. Grahowski, will you please call roll?
do we need?
No, we don't need to do in person.
Okay, we're not doing that, okay. Well, just for the record, we're all present. If we could stand and give a pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Southgate's mission statement is learning for life. Vision statement, Southgate Community Schools, the best choice for students and parents. Brings us to item D, revisions and approval of agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Pomponio. Do we have a second?
Support.
I like Mr. Lamos. And do we have any discussion? Mr. Craig?
So I am going to be approving the agenda. I just, personally, this is all personal to me. I wish we had done the meeting a little bit differently. I wish we had been able to go to a place that would have accommodated people. I mean, I can see we don't have much of an audience in person right now. I don't know if that's because people thought there would only be 10 people allowed in and they just stayed home. But we're kind of splitting the hairs on this with virtual participation and not in-person participation. I wish we could have arranged to be at a larger venue and allowed for anybody to come. Then we wouldn't have had to have done the virtual participation. But that was it. I just wanted to say I wish we had been able to do it a little differently. So,
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Craig. Anybody else wish to speak? Mr. Green, did? Okay, I thought you had mentioned you were gonna add
Nobody's here
oh, good.
from what we talked about
All
earlier.
right, thank you.
There's no use.
All right, moving to E, citizens' comments. So we do have one person in the audience today that decided they didn't have any comments at this point. If you change your mind, you can always approach later. But right now, we're going to start with the virtual. We have some comments that were submitted, I believe 18 comments that were submitted virtually. So between our superintendent, Ms. Pastor, Dr. Baker-Herring, and Kelly, we're going to take turns reading these comments, okay? So they get 3 minutes, and they will be timed by Dr. Pomponio here, and she'll give you the high sign once your time is up. And without further ado, please go ahead and read the comments.
So I apologize if I butcher anyone's name. This is Safa Sayed. Hello, my name is Safa Sayed. I have 3 kids that attend Southgate schools, 1 in high school and 2 in middle school. I want to thank all the teachers and principals for their hard work for my kids' safety and my parents' safety. I will continue to enroll children in online classes because this is the safest way to protect family for COVID-19. As you know, the cases for COVID-19 are very high and they will continue to rise when winter comes. This is why I will continue to keep my children online. Last but not least, even if the school opens up and allows indoor learning, I will continue to keep my children online. I choose this so that my family and friends can be safe. And again, thank you for all your hard work. This is from, Ross Powers. Hello, Southgate School Board. I wrote to you last 7th of August for input to the school board meeting for the vote to have 2021 school year start virtually. At that meeting, the board agreed to revisit the status of having school virtually or going back in person. For the October 13th meeting, my understanding is that the board will determine whether or not to continue virtual learning. For the safety of my family and that of the teachers and staff, I would highly suggest that the board vote to continue virtual learning for the foreseeable future. If it is safe to open schools, why are all board meetings, parent-teacher conferences, and PTO meetings still virtual? Adults can handle the safety protocols far better than children. If it is safe for schools to reopen, then we need to have these meetings face-to-face. Our 3 children are doing great with virtual learning. Yes, it does take effort on our part to make sure they complete everything, that they ask questions when they need to, but that isn't any different than in-school learning. All of the teachers have been understanding and getting the kids up to speed on how things work. The Schoology program has made things much more organized. We would love to keep it even when school goes back to in-person next year. We're already invested so much time and money into virtual learning to abandon it after a few months. The amount of time the teachers and staff have taken to make this work, the money spent on technology to make it happen, the change in routine to the children are now fully taken advantage of. Southgate schools, anyone who complains of any physical ailment will be sent home until they get a negative COVID-19 or COVID test. Our 2 boys are asthmatic and would not be allowed in school without continual COVID testing due to their continual coughing when the weather gets cold and everyone gets a cold, etc. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my scroll bar. Oh, darn it.
Are you finished with that one?
Nope, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I should go a little bit because I
Okay,
haven't.
I will.
It is a complaint of a headache, cough enough. What are the exact protocols for schools to follow, where they are published, and what are the names of the staff that will be in charge of enforcing each one? Will the school secretary be required to screen each? I'm sorry, I cannot get it to work. Hey, Michelle. Okay, so watch what it's doing.
I ended up clicking right on it.
It's just a spreadsheet. What you can do is you can say, I can't,
See, it's not,
I clicked right on the words, and then I could go down.
I got it, I'm sorry. If I could have one more minute, I'm sorry. One thing to consider that may help continuity if schools do reopen, it would make sense to reopen them all at the beginning of next semester. That will allow teachers and students to adjust with a fresh class. It will also allow those who chose Atlas and those coming from Atlas to in school the opportunity without loss of continuity. Michigan and nearby tested positive on October 10th were 1,500 in Michigan. The last time we had daily infections this high was April 8th. When I wrote the board last, the board voted to have virtual. The daily infections were 814. Michigan is 3.7% positive rate of community spread and is increased over the beginning of September. 3% is deemed safe. Are we at the time?
Keep going.
Okay. American Academy of Pediatrics reported that on 9/30, the children that make up 10% of all U.S. COVID cases, a steady rise since April as schools reopen. As we've seen across the state and the country, the reopening of schools has led to the same schools closing temporarily for quarantine for weeks. Then the children and staff go back, only to have the schools closed again a few days later. So much time wasted in transitioning between in school and virtual, so much confusion and destruction of routine for the children and staff. When the recent overturning of the governor's mask mandate, the children will now be more capable to spread any illness more than the school year so far. Local examples, Wyandotte has postponed their in-person restart due to the spread of COVID through their football team. Riverview, Rockwood, Dearborn, Gibraltar, Livonia, Nova, etc. have all had either schools closed or large quantities of children quarantined. A full list of schools with COVID can be located. They inserted a link. Many of the schools have opened and then closed throughout the country are fully air-conditioned air handling infrastructure. Second wave has been confirmed starting in Europe, an example of what we would what would come here. The world has yet to go through a 6-season cycle with COVID on top.
Okay, we got extra time,
Okay,
4 minutes, so.
all right. This is from oh, this is, but listen, this is from Shannon Swager. Dear Board of Education, I do not envy you having to make decisions that impact thousands of people from diverse backgrounds, and thank you in advance for not using haste when doing so. I would like to urge you to consider the scientific data that changes daily, sometimes hourly, when making decisions on when it is safe for students and staff to return to mask learning. Yes, remote learning is difficult. Anything new can cause trepidation, but it is without a scientific doubt the safest method of instruction in a world where our immediate area is still more than 40 active cases per million as flu season is fast approaching. The daily number of cases has not improved since the decision to close schools was made in March. As a matter of fact, many days it is much, much worse. On October the 8th of 2020, the COVID Act Now research group moved Michigan's risk level for another COVID-19 break from medium risk to high risk. The medical experts are now predicting that we can expect over 400,000 total deaths due to COVID-19 by the end of winter if we do not continue to take drastic measures against the virus. That is almost double the current amount of deaths we have had in 7 months since the virus's first appearance in our nation, double the amount of deaths in a shorter time span. Not one life in the Southgate Community School District is worth the risk that type of data and predictions foreshadows. It is our job as parents and school community team to work through hard times together, even if it inconveniences our lives, so that we can rejoice when we see that our decisions did not harm any student or staff member. Please understand that changing remote students to an Atlas program should be viewed as the option for parents that are not comfortable sending their kids back for mask-to-mask schooling. Atlas is built for the independent learner, and those that are not will suffer. It is a reading-heavy curriculum not structured well for many of those with various IEP goals or simply lack of education maturity to be an independent learner. I'm requesting that the board votes to continue remote instruction until the scientific data supports that we can return to in-person learning in a safe manner without fear of becoming infected with COVID-19 or a viable vaccine is widely available. The timeline of a possible return in November is not feasible with the virus rate in our area and the start of flu season. Asking parents to take a survey on levels of comfortability for modes of instruction without detailing what a day in the life will look like for students, as well as procedures and protocols that will take place with all things COVID-19 related, is a bit backward. Are we sure that we are prepared to fulfill all of the demands of Phase 4 and Phase 5 return to learn with fidelity to ensure the safety of students and staff? If there is a shadow of a doubt, the most irresponsible decision would be to send students back to in-person learning of any kind. Thank you for your time, Shannon Swager. This is from Holly West. To whomever this may concern, my opinion is that kids need to go back to school in person. For one, I am not a teacher, so that my son doesn't really listen to me or the teacher when they have to live classes. It's too distracting. He needs face-to-face instruction with a teacher. He is not learning much from a computer, and kindergarten is such a huge stage in life, especially not having a touchscreen Chromebook. It's very hard for him to trace things when he's asked to do so. He needs to be with his peers and teacher. He was so excited for school and friends. He did better in preschool in person than he is doing now. Sincerely, Holly and Connor West. This is from Eric Reese. Dear Board of Education, I would like to thank the teachers and staff who are doing a great job for providing an education to our children in this troubled time. As a father of 2 children in Southgate Community Schools and a husband of a staff member in the Southgate Community Schools, I would like to give my thoughts on the decision to return to in-person schooling. A survey was sent last week to gauge what families want going forward, but I feel I could not make an informed decision with the lack of information available. As parents, we all should know the following: what safety protocols are in place to protect students and staff, what procedures are in place if and when someone tests positive for COVID-19, how well is the ventilation system in each school in the district, classroom sizes, distance from each student, distance from teachers. There are just a few of concerns of mine. As we see the number of COVID-19 cases rising steadily, I strongly feel that remote learning for our Southgate teachers and staff is the safest option for all. Thank you for your time, Eric Reese.
So this one's from Adam Swager. Dear Board of Education, let me begin by expressing my gratitude for the fact that you've made decisions to keep the entire Titan family safe thus far during the COVID-19 pandemic, and I can only hope that you continue to do so. I know that you will hear many voices during the next phase of decisions, and it should be made clear that my stance is to urge you to vote to keep instruction remote. In the parent survey that was sent out last week, we were given 4 modes of instruction from which to choose moving forward. When is the voice of the teacher, or where is the voice of the teachers in this process? I'm sure there are teachers that would rather stay remote and those that would prefer in-person instruction. Why can't we restructure class lists to accommodate these situations? Saying that Atlas is our online option for the current mode of instruction for the current remote students that are not comfortable with in-person instruction should be a moot point. Atlas is structured for the independent learner, and our remote students have been succeeding with Southgate teachers for over 5 weeks now with live instruction. To change this educational routine for remote students because Atlas is the only option to stay clear of in-person instruction is one that would be damaging for many students. In addition, current Atlas families in elementary were given the option to change their decision and return to in-person learning at the trimester schedule. If the board votes to return to in-person learning for the November 9th date previously mentioned, this would allow current Atlas students to enter these classes about 3 weeks after this date. This would impact several aspects, including class size, social distancing requirements, relearning class procedures and policies, etc. Here is yet another major factor that plays into my request for delaying the decision to go to in-person instruction. Has it been made crystal clear to families that in-person will look like? Making sure to stress just how different it will be from when students departed back in March. It is my opinion that the general consensus for those that support in-person learning that we get back to the need to get back to normal and that kids need to socialize. The reality is that neither is applicable when in phases 4 and 5 of our plan. The rigid plans that will need to be in place to meet the CDC guidelines for returning to school safety will quickly show that in-person learning is anything but normal at this point in the global pandemic. Can you assure us that every teacher, every administrative assistant, every staff member is fully ready to implement all aspects of the Return to Learn plan? Can you assure us that every substitute teacher that walks into our buildings will be fully prepared to follow the protocols and procedures? Can you assure us that the staff has the necessary equipment to provide a safe environment, including when class size numbers are impacted at the trimester and semester timeframes? Is there any doubt in any of the, if there is any doubt in any of these aspects and more that may cause
Time's
harm
up.
to our
3
children?
minutes.
Okay, that was the last sentence. Hold on. Oops. Oh. Oh, that's not good.
I know.
Okay.
Yours is opposite from mine. So everyone
Hold
else
on.
is
Jeez.
No, I started using the tab. Here.
Okay.
It helped me.
Okay, so I have to, she was green?
Yep, Joe was green.
Okay,
You read that one?
all right. That's only, I'm missing one then, though. There should be one more. I only had 3. No, but there's another, there was 4 you said. Okay, there's only 2.
There's one, there might be another one left.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Sorry. Christy Friss. I have a preschooler, kindergartner, and a first grader. Virtual learning has been an incredible challenge since day one. I know the school and teachers have been working very hard, and I commend them for all they have done. Most days are spent with me running back and forth between my kindergarten and first grader because both need assistance during their live sessions that are the same time. All the while trying to keep my 3-year-old silent during the live sessions to cut down on background noise. My kids have been very distracted and aren't soaking in any knowledge. For our family, it's been more about checking things off the list instead of truly learning and taking in concepts and informations being taught. Both of my children would be more successful with face-to-face instruction instead of school being enjoyable for my kids. It's a constant source of tension and arguing to get them to complete their assignments. Okay, and this one is Rachel West. Good evening. Before you decide if our children should continue learning virtually or return to school face-to-face, let me tell you how they've been doing since this pandemic started. In March, my daughter was in 3rd grade and my son in preschool. They both absolutely loved school. They would wake up excited to start the day and see friends and teachers. They got great reports for behavior as well as assignments. Once the pandemic hit, we were all just trying to survive by staying home, waiting out this COVID-19 storm and the less than optimal school situation it caused, and said this is temporary. The only people the kids saw were their grandparents through the window. The kids had a really hard time with this as they missed their friends, peers, teachers, and family terribly. Summer came and more was known about the virus. We slowly started seeing close family and friends once we knew what the risks actually were. We allowed our son to play t-ball. Things were looking up and kids were looking forward to being able to return to school in the fall as we watched beaches, amusement parks, and other places considered non-essential reopen to the public. When the decision was made to return to school virtually, we chose the Southgate teacher option so they could at least see peers and teachers in live sessions. Though the teachers have been great, virtual learning for my children has been very stressful, both mentally and emotionally. We rarely get through a day without some sort of meltdown, whether it be caused by a misunderstanding assignment, headaches from staring at a screen the majority of the day, or frustrations from learning to use the computer at 4 and 5 years old, and or not being able to concentrate because their breaks are at different times. They also have a 3-year-old brother who wants to play with his siblings. Have you ever tried to work from home with kids running around the house? Are the kids distracting? Now imagine being a kid yourself, missing your friends, missing being in school, throw in some technical difficulties, and don't forget the fact that kids are better behaved for others versus their moms. It's been really tough. Both kids dread school each day now. I don't have a classroom. I have a kitchen table. This is a house, not a school. My kids are struggling, and I feel like I'm failing them every day. Face-to-face learning is essential. When do we stop trying to survive and start living again? Gyms are open, movie theaters are open, schools really need to open. Okay, I think we have one more, but I don't see the name of the person. I think it's at the bottom. How about I read the name after because, Robin Taraseco. Dear members of the Southgate Board of Education, thank you for the opportunity to express our concerns regarding Southgate's up-and-coming return to school plan. Our 2 children are students at Ford Line Elementary. We are trying to urge you to continue remote learning with our Southgate teachers rather than reopening the buildings. In the coming weeks, as of yesterday, Michigan had 1,077 COVID-19 cases, the highest of our state has seen since April. As of October 8th, Michigan has now been moved from medium to high risk. No one has any idea what to expect during the up-and-coming flu season, and with COVID-19 cases still growing, please consider remote learning to continue as we move through this potentially dangerous flu-COVID-19 combined season. While learning is far more ideal to be provided in person, please know that remote learning is working. If our child needs help or extra instruction, their teachers have bent over backwards to help them. They respond to emails within minutes or have ample sessions for one-to-one extra instruction. Each week that passes, they're becoming more comfortable maneuvering through the remote portal. In fact, our children rarely need any extra parental assistance. Reopening during a global pandemic is a complex task. Many of our buildings have no air conditioning or poorly functioning HVAC systems. Hallways and classrooms are often crowded. Many students struggle with maturity to follow COVID-19 rules like practicing social distancing or wearing masks. With precious lives at stake, district leaders must be able to ensure the safety of each and every person who walks into our schools. Many districts have attempted to safely reopen and have already temporarily closed down, and outbreaks are happening within the sports teams, even with their staff. If a billion-dollar sports league like the NBA and MLB can't restart without multiple cases of COVID, how can we expect underfunded schools to reopen safely? While we understand it's important to offer a district solution that allows parents and caregivers to go back to work, it's our hope that members of the community, from the students to the adults with underlying health conditions, are considered when putting forth these reopening plans for the 2021 school year. It is ethically and morally wrong to bring students back without clear and proven mechanisms to keep children and staff safe. Even one life lost is too many. While social distancing, masks, and cleaning can help mitigate the risk of COVID-19, remote learning is the only way to ensure the virus doesn't spread in our schools and out into the larger community.
I don't trust that.
Yeah. We've decided we don't like
Yeah, it's new and different. All right, so there is just one correction. And then a couple additions when Mrs. Pastor was having a technical difficulty. So when she said it was Ross Powers, when she read the longer one, it was really Christian Sheneman. And so I'm going to read another one that got missed. That was Melissa Hurst. And so her comment is, my comment is regarding the vote that will be occurring regarding a possible return to in-person classes. I hate that this virus is still running rampant in our country, in our state, in cities nearby, and schools nearby. It's not fair that the virus is still spreading. It's not fair that our kids have had to learn from home. It's not fair that our kids are missing out on social interactions they need. It's not fair, and yet it's necessary. With the number of cases growing and no end in sight, I don't see how we can safely send our kids back to classrooms full-time, especially since I can't see any way it can be done with the appropriate social distancing needed. However, I also know that 3 of my kids in Southgate schools, I have had one that is desperately needing some contact with the outside world. However, I don't think she needs that contact on a full-time basis, packed into a giant petri dish with 30 other kids. Like many other parents, I've worried myself over this, knowing that if I were to send my children back to school at some point, there will be a risk. I hate that we have to make the decision, but since it has to be made, I suggest that we do it in the safest way possible. I suggest a part-time return for these reasons. Number 1, kids will get social interaction and in-person instruction they need. Number 2, the classes will be half full, the hallways will be less crowded, always for more social distancing and thus less exposure to possible virus carriers. And number 3, a transition from in-person to remote will be much easier when a school needs to close due to cases. I feel that while the first week of remote learning was rough, it has gotten better, and the kids have gotten used to it. The amount of homework seems to be a little excessive, but I'd rather see them busy than not doing anything. But overall, I'd like to see them happy. I think that a part-time return would appease many of us parents who are worried about sending our kids back, who perhaps need baby steps in this process. I believe that a part-time return will also make our kids happy because they will return to part-time normalcy. I am not comfortable with full-time return and will consider other options if the need arises. Thank you. Okay. So, the next one, I believe, is Ross Powers. I implore the ladies and gentlemen of this board to listen closely to my message. Governor Whitmer closed the schools at the end of the school day on March 13th, 2020, with approximately 254 cases of the coronavirus reported in the state of Michigan. The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services reported 1,522 daily cases of coronavirus and 15 deaths on Saturday, October 10th, which is 6 times the number of cases that were reported at the time of closing the school. On October 5th, MLive.com reported Michigan has 18 new K-12 schools with COVID outbreaks. The number of Michigan schools with coronavirus outbreaks continues to grow, with the number now reaching 58. According to data the state released Monday, including Holy Redeemer, Detroit, Lutheran Westland, Shoemate, Gibraltar, Salina Intermediate, Dearborn, Airport High School, Carleton, Novi High School, Novi, Divine Child, Dearborn. They go on to say that there's no guarantee that the numbers won't take a turn for the worse in coming weeks. Even a single case of coronavirus is dangerous for the infected student and has the potential to spark a wider outbreak in their communities. According to Michigan.gov, Wayne County alone has reported 1,854 new cases over the last 2 weeks, from September 27th to October 10th. Further evidence of the dangers of this virus continues as schools on the west side of the state have closed in-person classes as of yesterday, October 12th. I support and admire the brave and morally correct decision that you have made to choose remote learning. I applaud the efforts and tremendous strides that the employees of Southgate have made to provide all students with a Chromebook, purchasing and quickly implementing Schoology, and going above and beyond to support the students. I understand that remote learning can never replace the face-to-face experience of in-person learning, and nothing can replace my family either. You see, I'm not a Southgate taxpayer. You see, I am not only a Southgate taxpayer and a supporter of Southgate school bonds, but I'm a proud father of a Southgate teacher, a grandfather of a Southgate paraprofessional, and a grandfather of graduating Southgate senior. Remaining on an online platform is imperative to remain safe. Today, October 12th, Wayne County reported a total of 36,900 cases and 3,008 deaths. With Wayne County numbers on the rise and the reported numbers being 6 times higher now than when they were when the school closed, why are we even considering to return to face-to-face? This is a game of Russian roulette, and returning face-to-face is pulling the trigger. Thank you for reading my comment, and the board, I pray that we remain safe while attending schools remotely. It's always better to err on the side of caution, particularly when lives are at risk. Okay, now I'm going to get down to my, all right. This comment is from Paul Silcott. We feel the rising COVID numbers and flu season just starting, we will be setting ourselves up for nothing but trouble. We are all starting to get a handle on online school, and it would be a shame to disrupt this and have to fall back on it. Everyone should feel safe, and students and families. What will we do if our child has been exposed in school and now we have to take a 14-day quarantine at work? What will we do if no one can pick a sick child up? Too many unanswered questions. We vote to continue with online until a further date. Thank you. This is from Ann Wazalewski. Good evening. I want to show my gratitude for the board's decision to have remote learning in Southgate with 2 choices for parents during the last 5 weeks. Thank you for making that tough decision. I'm a resident and a teacher for Southgate schools. Remote learning has had its challenges. The safety and health of students, teachers, and staff have not been one of those challenges, and for that, I'm extremely grateful. I want to also share some other positive points that I've noticed. Students are healthy. Students are able to see their friends remotely and speak to them without masks. Students are able to move around freely. Students are able to hear their teacher clearly and are able to read to their teacher without masks. Students and teachers are able to focus on curriculum without a worry of exposure to a potentially deadly virus and/or other shared gems. I have concerns in the remote and the return to school options about the return to school options and the fact that students will not be accessing many parts of traditional in-person school. Students being kept at their desks all day while eating, while having their gym class, while socially distanced and in masks is worrisome. I would like the board members to consider whether that kind of school experience is what kids deserve and whether that is the right choice for students right now, not parents or teachers. Thank you for the opportunity to voice my opinion and for all your time and dedication to the students of Southgate. This one is from Janet Zempel. Just today, the Detroit Free Press reported that hospitalizations from COVID-19 are up 80% here in Michigan. The same article quotes Dr. Khaldun from MDHHS saying that this could be the beginning of a second wave. Does this report affect your decision on how our school system will proceed? And she left the link there for the article. The next comment is from Rhonda Gibson. Once again, the school board finds yourselves in an impossible situation. You can never please all the people all the time, and I want to recognize and thank you for putting the safety of our children first. I want to thank the teachers and administrators for adapting to this virtual environment. This has not been easy for anyone involved, and we all should recognize that and recognize the efforts by our students, staff, and volunteers in the district. What is the protocol going to look like for children entering a building? How will there be distinguishment made between allergies, cold, flu, and COVID to keep our district safe? What is going to be the standard set when someone tests positive, which is inevitable? How will we move forward with safety, or will find ourselves moving to a virtual environment on the fly? What happens to the children whose families decide that moving to face-to-face is not the best solution at this time? Thank you for your time. The next statement is from Jennifer Del Vero. I would like to first start out by saying thank you to the Southgate Community Schools and all the teachers and staff for all the hard work and dedication during this time. I opted for school of choice at Southgate for my kindergarten, related to their decision for online-only learning, as I have seen what COVID has done and continues to do to individuals and families. As a medical provider in the hospital during this pandemic, I have seen the things I hope I never see again and encountered situations unlike any other. Coming from a 2 medical personnel household, one of which immune compromised, and having 3 young children, I feel strongly about maintaining distance learning as a sole option. I understand in doing so that it creates a lot more work for the parents as well as all Southgate staff. However, I feel that as though returning to any face-to-face learning at this point would be detrimental to not only the individuals involved in schools, but also the community. I am grateful that as of yet, most young children have minimal symptoms, and that is not the case for many of our immune-compromised and older adults. By school-age children having minimal to sometimes no symptoms, they become a significant carrier and transmitter of COVID-19 to those they come in contact with. As we know, this is a very transmittable virus. Our kids have started out the school year strong and are just now getting into a routine. To take this away and put them into a face-to-face environment in which they would be taken out of very frequently without warning, to be quarantined from family and loved ones, would have a significant impact on their mental health, as well as put them and many others at an avoidable risk. As a medical provider, I'm hopeful and confident in our abilities to develop vaccines and other means of treatment. However, this has not occurred yet, and we are not going into the influenza season full of coughs, and we are going into the influenza season full of coughs, sneezes, fevers, and runny noses, all of which will spread COVID faster. I know it will be much easier on me as a parent to say return face-to-face. However, I would not be able to sleep at night knowing I put my own, as well as other families and loved ones, at risk to make my situation easier. Having a hybrid schedule would do nothing but spread COVID. Any exposure at all to someone with the virus puts you at as much risk 1 day or 2 days a week as it does 5 days a week. I will end by asking you to consider this scenario. You opt for returning face-to-face, and one of your loved ones becomes seriously ill from COVID. Would you at that point think it is still worth it? My intention is not to scare anyone, but to bring light to the severity of the situation. Okay. Okay, this is from Rachel Rosamond. Virtual school has been an adjustment for everyone, and I think now that we've been doing it for a month, it might be a good time to reevaluate the amount of work being given to students. I understand that the usual curriculum is full days' work, but they aren't physically at school, and they're at home. When siblings are also on their Chromebooks attending lessons, where little ones are not in school yet and are being kept from the areas they used to be allowed in, where parents are also working from home. There have been several instances where the schedule moved times, same day or an additional time for the next day, given to us parents the night before. There is no doubt our Southgate school members are working hard and doing a great job. Just asking to revisit this process and see where we can improve. A schedule to abide by and have the ability to plan our days is imperative, and less alone work time would be even better. Okay, last one, Julia Frazier. I understand the reasoning behind selecting remote learning for the start of the 2021 school year. However, after discovering that the majority of the time the kids are learning on their own, this is not sustainable. My third grader has 6 hours a week with his normal teachers. That's it. 3 hours of math and 3 hours of ELA. The teachers are rushing through their plans due to time limits, and my son is not learning. He's meeting deadlines. If I would have known the amount of asynchronous work that I would be responsible for facilitating prior to the school year, I would have not left the district or chosen Atlas. I would have left the district or chosen Atlas. When all adults in the house work and they have no close family, this is a struggle. It is not fair to these kids, especially those who have learning disabilities, ADHD, or those who need face-to-face contact. I urge the school board to consider at least a hybrid model to allow these kids a chance to succeed this year. Respectfully, Julia Frazier.
Thank you, Dr. Baker-Herring, Ms. Thomas, and Ms. Pastor. Does that conclude the comment section? All right, I need to go backwards before we go forwards. We did not yet vote on the agenda, so we have a motion by Dr. Proponio, second by Lamas, and all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. So we'll go on now to item F, presentations. Are you prepared to give your presentation at this point?
Will it stop itself?
So just a couple of reminders while this is coming up. Due to the legislative requirement, we will essentially be doing part of this presentation on a monthly basis. Originally, it was every 30 days. They've now changed it to a monthly basis for those boards that only meet once a month. So in fact, they changed and modified the requirements. So after each month that the plan was approved, the board has to hold a meeting to reconfirm the delivery of instruction. You have to solicit public comment on how instruction is going to be delivered, and we have to publicly announce the two-way communication rights at a meeting and post to the transparency reporting link on the district website. For each reconfirmation, the district shall make a report to CEPI, which is the Center for Educational Performance and Information. We have to say what the instructional delivery method that was confirmed, how the instruction will be delivered for each grade level offered by the district, including pre-kindergarten as applicable. I'm not even going to try to say it, my tongue is tied. And whether or not, as determined by the Michigan Department of Education in consultation with CEPI, the district is offering higher levels of in-person instruction for English language learners, special education students, or other special populations. So we asked Kelly Thomas, the special ed director, to give you a little bit of an insight on the special education part of this.
So last week, the Michigan Department of Education came out with some additional guidance for special education and some additional considerations for when in phases 4 through 6. So basically what they're telling us is that regardless of the district's chosen method of instruction, for instance, if we choose to stay remote, we have to consider students' IEPs, and we might have to be prepared to bring some students with IEPs or 504 plans back in for some in-person instructions. It's we need to have a CLP, which I do explain later in here, that for, we may need to include in-person services in the student's CLP. The CLP is a contingency learning plan, and what that is it's a plan for students, what we write down all the services that a student is going to receive while they're in remote instruction and not face-to-face. You have to use all the IEP team, including the parents, to help design the strategies to help the student learn. If a district's unable to provide FAPE, which is a free and appropriate education via remote instruction, then we have to provide certain services face-to-face as determined by the IEP team. So contingency learning plans will be completed. They're optional, but they should be completed by the state, but should be completed for all students with IEPs when the district is not in full face-to-face instruction. The plan should describe the services that are being provided that are different from when the student is face-to-face. For instance, if a student has a lot of service hours and we have less hours, we'd have to describe in the plan how we were going to meet their goals and objectives using the less service hours. If a student is not making adequate progress, then we'll have to consider alternate methods of instruction, which may include some face-to-face instruction. We're recommending that we should start with our youngest students and the students with the most severe disabilities, such as students who attend the cross-categorical classrooms, which are a high number of service hours with kids with more significant disabilities, and the students at Beacon Day Treatment Center who have a lot of hours. Many of these students have a more difficult time with remote instruction, and there are also less students in the classroom, which will make social distancing a little easier. It's very difficult for us to meet all the students' goals that have that significant of a disability. We have started learning labs in all the buildings. Those were in our original plan. We've mainly used these learning labs for special education assessments and meetings. Parents, staff, and students have followed all the safety protocols, and we've not had any issues. We are hoping to build additional services using this learning lab protocol. However, we have a lot of details to work out regarding the schedules for special education teachers when we do that.
Okay, so one of the requirements of the extended continuity of learning plan, which Mrs. Pastor referred to, was that we have to report out monthly the two-way interaction percentages. So we are required to, every district is required to document how many students receive two-way interactions per week and provide you those percentages. So you can see the week ending September 15th was 97%. Week ending 9/22 was 96%, week ending 9/29, 97%, and the week ending 10/6 was 98%. So we also gathered parent and staff opinions for their choices for learning. And the parent opinion survey was sent out last week on Wednesday, 10/7. And the staff opinion survey was sent out last Thursday, 10/8. And so it's pretty blurry, so I'm going to go ahead and read the different options for our young 5s through 5th grade parents, their opinions. We had 832 responses, with the options being to continue with a remote schedule with their child's teachers, 213 responses, or 25.6% selected to continue with remote learning. To continue with the virtual program in Southgate, which is our Atlas program, 48 responses, or 5.8% selected that option. And then moving to a hybrid model, where half the students would attend school on Monday and Tuesday, the other half would attend on Thursday and Friday, and Wednesday would be an asynchronous or online day. 190 responses indicated that, or 22.8%. And then the last option of moving to an all-students model, which is 4 full days of instruction with all students, and Wednesday would be an online or asynchronous day, 438 responses, or 52.6% selected that option. The next section here is middle school, 6 through 8, was a total of 537 responses. 154, or 28.7%, chose to remain with the remote schedule. 37, or 6.9%, chose to continue with the virtual program, Atlas. 119, or 22.2%, elected to move to the hybrid model. And then 261, or 48.6%, chose to move to the all-students model. And then the last section of our parent opinion survey was for 9 through 12. There was a total of 671 responses, with 188 responses choosing, 178, pardon me, 26.5% to choose to continue with remote, 37, or 5.5%, to continue with the virtual program Atlas, 156, or 23.2%, to move to the hybrid model, and then 338, or 50.4%, to move to the all-students model. And then our staff opinion survey, we asked how many staff would prefer to continue with the current learning schedule, whether it be remote or virtual, and that was 172, or 56% of the staff in Southgate. How many would prefer to move to a hybrid model? 77, or 25.1%. And how many would prefer to move to an all-students model, which was 75, or 24.4%. So there were comments. We had an open section in each of the opinion surveys for folks to leave their comments. And so of the 1,632 responses we received from the parent opinion survey, there were 564 comments. We received 307 responses from our staff, with 159 comments. And all comments and responses have been shared with the Board of Education.
So this is from our last extended continuity of learning plan. One of the assurances basically requires us to consider all of these things: the COVID-19 cases, the positive cases, hospitalizations, number of deaths, cases per day per 1 million, the percentage of positive, the health capacity strength, and the testing, tracing, and containment infrastructure with regard to COVID-19. Weekly, the Wayne County Health Department releases a report. So this is information that's shared weekly with the board so that they have it. This is a weekly look at what it has been since the start of the school year on 9/6 through Friday, October the 3rd. For whatever reason, the number of outbreak events was not on the report this last Friday. So you can see the percentages there represent positivity rate, the total confirmed cases, hospital occupancy, and hospital rate for ICUs, and the testing capacity rates. Just this last Friday, the Wayne County Department of Health and Human Services released a county community spread for the 7-day period ending October the 6th. So Southgate did receive a C. The higher A, B, C, D, E, the higher the risk. So we are right there in the middle. The other thing that the metric that they're asking you to look at is sort of hard to read on the next page, but basically depending on where your level is. So you can see we're at a C. No cases in school buildings, so we don't have any in person. So it says in person with strict mitigation measures. Discuss additional innovative mitigation strategies with local health department. There in the middle, in the yellow, talks about the buildings with known cases, and it says 3 in staff or students, but no ongoing transmission. And then obviously, it's a cautionary, consider reduced density in infected buildings after cleaning, contact tracing. Discuss additional innovative mitigation strategies with the local health department. Then buildings with evidence of an ongoing transmission, and it does say 3, which is interesting because the other outbreak list, you can get on an outbreak list with only 2 cases, but in this case, it says 3. This is part of our challenging mixed messages. Is it 2 or is it 3? But again, if we have more than 3 cases, it does say consider reduced density in infected buildings after an appropriate pause. Discuss additional innovative mitigation strategies with the local health department. So the mode of instruction, the possible options for the board obviously is to continue with what we're doing in the current learning schedule, which includes both remote and Atlas. Move to a hybrid model. We are suggesting that we don't, if that's the vote tonight, that we do not start any sooner than November the 9th. That'll give us opportunity to plan, to share our plans with staff and students, or move to an all-person model. Again, we are suggesting beginning no sooner than November the 9th. This presentation, although there were only 3 of us here today, is part of the COLT leadership team, which has actually grown in members so that we meet on a regular basis and really talk about what it looks like and the challenges. Everything is not perfect, but we are working to do the best with what we have currently. So what questions do you have?
Going back to one of the first presentations, what is a two-way interaction defined as?
So a two-way interaction can be a student attending a live session with a teacher. It can be an email exchange with a parent or student. It can be a student turning in assignments, text messaging, any type of going back and forth communication. Did I miss anything?
They're primarily done with the live sessions. That's pretty much where they need those two-way interactions.
Okay, thank you.
Just to remind you, a week is considered a Wednesday to a Tuesday, so it's even more challenging for us to keep track because it's not a full Monday through Friday, it's a Wednesday to Tuesday.
I have a question. With the possible options, I'm sure that you reviewed everything with the potential, possibility of going back into the classroom. Is there an option for half and half with in-class instruction and online? Is that a possibility? Because I didn't see it on here, so I was wondering if that was.
So I'm not positive what you're asking. The hybrid model is sort of taking a class and in 2?
The hybrid is the students are going both online and in the classroom.
Yes.
What I'm saying is if the parents have an option, you have parents who are going face-to-face and then parents who are online. Is that feasible at all to have the parents who choose to go face-to-face, and even teachers? Can that be worked out as a plan, a part of this as an option?
So if whatever the board's decision is tonight, we will begin planning tomorrow to make every possible option the best for staff and students. So I already have a scheduled meeting with the union president tomorrow morning in anticipation of whatever the vote is, so that we can begin to plan.
Okay, okay, thank you.
I don't see an action item to pick a plan. Is that,
Mode of
That's on
instruction.
the,
oh, that's
an
mode of
action item.
instruction, okay. All right, sorry.
Yeah, given some type of choice, like Dr. Pomponio suggested, where you know, a hybrid portion, I would still consider a hybrid where parents would have a choice. Those who feel comfortable sending their kids, we'd decide on that type of method of instruction, but still having an option, whether it be with Southgate teachers, if that's,
That's not called a
possible, or
hybrid.
an Atlas. That might be something that I think Dr. Paponi was talking
Well,
about.
that's a remote. What she's
Yeah.
asking, I think, is that, I'm sorry, if I may, I don't want to get wrapped down on the first day back. So right now, we only have Atlas, and I know what Dr. Pomponi was asking, and I think that was mentioned by a couple of the parent comments, that Andy Green does not feel comfortable with Atlas. I want a live teacher still. Is there any way of recording the teacher's lessons? And, you know, I brought this up
Airport model.
a month ago when we were discussing this, is the parents want some sort of teacher still teaching them, not Atlas. So that would be like a different option or something to consider. I think that's become, at least a few of the emails I've had personally, and a couple of the comments that I heard taking notes here, is there a way we can work that out? Do we have teachers that are possibly going to take a FMLE leave, and we have enough to put those teachers as remote teachers for social studies, English, science, math class? Could we do a combination of English, you have Atlas if we don't have that teacher, or a live teacher if possible, preventing people from taking FMLE leaves or COVID leaves, and still giving everybody an option of what they want to do? So
That's
I think
clear.
that's what you're trying to say. I know that's
Yes.
elongated, but that's, you know, we haven't looked at that yet, so I think that's something to,
So the
Consider.
Colt leadership team did some research. We each took a couple school districts and we contacted different school districts to see what they're doing. And so, for example, in Airport and Huron, they are actually allowing teachers to use their DocuCams or their Chromebooks to sort of have students at home be able to sort of view what's going on in the classroom. The unfortunate piece of that is it means a lot of even increased screen time, but it does mean that you can teach new lessons every day and have those students that are perhaps immune compromised learning from home with the same teacher that they've already become attached to at this point.
I'm sorry.
go
And then
ahead. It was your question originally. I was going to
Okay.
piggyback on it.
Well, and then vice versa for teachers, because I don't want a lot of teachers to be doing the FMLA or fearing and having anxiety, because our teachers are all 20-year-olds. So we have those, I care about their health too. So can they have an option to say, I want to teach remote, you know, so they can maybe teach, and I think we're saying the same thing about, they want to teach those subjects with the students who want to learn remotely as well. I mean, because I want the teachers to have a choice as well.
I'm not sure we would have enough remote options for teachers to actually choose that option. So it really depends.
Okay.
Yeah. Mr. President?
Mr. Green.
I'm sorry, Dr. Peter.
I'm
you go.
good, thank you.
So to piggyback on that, I believe in this, and I have no basis for this. I believe that if many parents who have the option or are using remote Atlas at this point, I shouldn't say remote because Atlas is different. If they had the option of having a live teacher over Atlas, you would see people switch to that platform. I think more people would do that. And I have to believe, because at least I use Atlas in my school district, that maybe it's logistically not possible. Dr. Baker Herring, you would know better than I, but just as we're exploring this, like I said, if this class has to be an English class, fine, at Atlas, but the rest of them I could have some live teachers, you know, a combination of something like that.
Yeah.
So that's just a comment, and, you know, to think about. I also have a couple other questions. First of all, I don't know if it's that big of a deal, but I'm like, I usually am not good at picking up math, but in the staff opinion survey, it has to be 56 to, there's no way it can be 56% and then 49%, that equals 105%, but just thought I'd point that out. So I think the viewing public, or a point I want to make is, I've been waiting personally and for questions for the Colt team, so forth and so on, about seeing the Wayne County report. One of the big things that we have to do as a board is consider the Wayne County Health Department with our decisions. And a C, and how you interpret that data is different, or could be different, but a C, the one part of it says, if anybody was hearing that point, that it was in, there's no outbreaks, you should have in-person instruction. It's hard to know if you're gonna have an outbreak when you're not in school yet. So the in-person instruction doesn't necessarily have to be full-time, but if honestly, under Wayne County's Health Department giving us a C, it sounds like the Wayne County Health Department is recommending that we at least consider an option for some sort of hybrid or in-person learning to some degree. That's how I interpret it. I could be wrong. Then again, that report came out last week, and everything's so fluid that it's changed, so I understand that part of it. My other question, so the Atlas, picking on you guys for math.
We
gotta blame Google Forms on that one.
we do.
They let them pick all the choices they were interested in.
Well, that still doesn't
More
eat.
than 300.
Cousin of mine, that is still over 100%.
But I'm saying that there's 300.
You're talking to a guy who refuses to give 110% for athletes because I don't believe there's anything over 100%. It's impossible. Anyway, I know I have something else. The Atlas, face-to-face. I guess that's it for now. Unless I
Mr.
can
Sage,
think
did
of
you still have a comment?
No, I think
Okay.
Andy addressed it already.
All right, and Mr. Freitas, I thought you
I
had
was
put-
just gonna talk about what Darlene was
Yeah,
saying.
please.
In Detroit Public Schools, what we do is that teachers had the option to go face-to-face or remotely.
Oh.
And then they said how many teachers were willing to do it, and that was how many spots were available in class. I personally have 36 students online. I teach online. And in class, there's 18 in one class and 20 in another. I don't know how feasible that is because with just logistics and stuff, Detroit's a larger district and we can spread out a little bit more. But is that kind of what you were thinking, or like giving the parents the option to have something like
Yes.
that, or? Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Estes, sorry, Mr. President. I remembered what I forgot.
Mr. Green.
The screen time that one of the one of the comments that were made struck me, and then looking at our screen time, and I understand the pedagogy of why, but it seems like that there's somewhat of a consensus that the screen time is not long enough. I mean, some kids say we're looking at parents are saying we look at a screen all the time, and then other people are saying we don't have it enough. So, and you understand that if this remote thing goes through, you're not gonna have 20, 25 minutes in a class, or 30, whatever it is. I mean, you're gonna be in that class. So, and if we choose to go face-to-face, it's not gonna be the same as regular face-to-face. And I think the viewing public needs to know that. I know there's questions about masks, and you can't make people wear masks now. That is absolutely not true. This school board, this body has every right, just like a dress code, and I know I'm going to be adamant about this, but we have every right to require masks if we go back hybrid or face-to-face. That the governor's order getting struck down, and I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on, doesn't change the fact that we have a right as a school board to make that decision for safety. That doesn't affect the school. So, and even Ms. Pastor in her email had said, or survey had indicated, to understand choosing coming back to face-to-face comes with the rules that this board and this administration is going to enforce, or what we feel is best for all the students.
So just to remind you, the Board of Education passed the COVID-19 preparedness plan that includes young 5s to 12th grade masks.
And I know that, we know that here, but I want to make sure that everybody watching, because I just keep glancing at the phone, because I know there's almost 300 or 400 people watching, which I think is great, because you care about, your kids, and you should. And I wish there would be 1,400 people watching. But, so those are a couple of points and questions that I had.
Mr. President, are we in discussion now on this, or are we gonna do that when we vote, when we
Yeah,
go to the action?
we'll get into more specifics when we get into action item number 1. This is just more or less a discussion regarding the presentation.
I think Mr. Craig has a question.
Mr. Craig.
So, I guess, I don't know if these are all questions or maybe some are comments. So I'll just start by jumping in on the Wayne County report, slide number 14. It says there's 2 outbreaks in 1 week and 3 outbreaks in another, total of 5. Seems to me I've just heard through the rumor mill at least more than 5 schools closing in Wayne County. I find that odd that a school closing or shutting down for COVID reasons doesn't classify as an outbreak when it only takes 2. So I guess I don't know where their numbers come from or what they're counting or not counting.
I think it's part of the frustration of the mixed messages.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of troubling on the information. And then I guess I just want to talk about the survey a little bit. I think the survey maybe has some flaws to it. For instance, were you able to take it multiple times?
It did capture the email addresses as people submitted it.
But that just got totaled up, right? So they didn't get weeded out.
We did,
If they had multiple children, they took it for how many students they had.
But we don't have any way of policing that. You could take it 6 times and
we did not place it.
we wouldn't know. So I don't know how to qualify all those numbers, given that, that case. I'm not sure that, I know face-to-face said 4 days back face-to-face. I don't know if everybody understood that meant 35 kids in a class. Because when we originally had talked about face-to-face in August, we were talking about 60% going back face-to-face, 40% going Atlas, because at that point, that's all the options were. So I'm not sure if that's what people understood from that. I would have loved to have been able to kind of weed that down a little. I think that we need to, and again, some of the weakness again, and I think this relates back to the survey, is I think our virtual needs some improvement. Andy talked about it. I think our screen time is probably less than any other district that I've heard of. And that's what I'm hearing from parents is we don't have enough screen time. The kids are just a little bit here and then they're done, I don't know. I know we talked originally about how that was going to be maybe policed by administrators. I don't know if there's any reports on that, if they've been policing and checking and.
So now that we're 6 weeks in, we do know that if you decide to stay remote, we are going to increase screen time. So I've already talked to administration that we are going to be increasing it. Now, please keep in mind that still will not make people happy. So if you're wrangling little ones, you're going to wrangle them for longer. And so this is a no-win situation.
Attempting to make everybody happy is a guaranteed way to fail. So
Correct.
That's not what I would be in favor of doing. And then just something I kind of picked up on from, again, going back to the survey, the way the survey was put to us. Maybe that's how we need to look at these modes when we're talking about the modes, is maybe we need to break this up into K5, 6-8, and 9-12. Those are all different situations in buildings. Those are all different situations of learning. And maybe that's something that we need to kind of think about.
May I make one comment about that?
Sure.
So I just want to remind you that the legislation requires us to consider K-5 first for more in-person than any other grade level.
Right. And that kind of gets right to my point of what I would, again, not passing in hallways, not driving to school in a sense like high school does. It's a very different situation. If you've spent any time in any of the schools, you know what I'm talking about, that's each of those sections is almost like a different planet. So I think maybe we ought to look at that when we're looking at our modes and thinking about those. I guess that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Yeah, specifically, Mr. Craig and I were talking prior to the meeting about K through 5, the lower elementary, how those, they have the ability to my wife is a lower L teacher, so they have the ability to keep in their own cohorts, where when you get into the junior high and high school, now they're going classroom to classroom to classroom, makes it a little bit more difficult. So definitely something we need to investigate further. Mr. Sage.
Well, Mr. Craig talks about technically policing what as far as the assignments that are going out, the amount of screen time. And it seems like we're all over the board. You know, you may have one teacher who does it in the first 5 minutes, and then the rest is work time, and you have some teachers that'll work 45 minutes. Is there a rhyme or reason, is there a structure that each teacher needs to be following?
I mean, I can't speak to each, I can tell you that I've been in a few different classrooms, I've also, they've, shared some of what their, plans look like. Definitely, I've probably spent more time with 6-12 folks, and they do tend to utilize the majority of their teaching time. I will say I can't necessarily speak to K-5 at this moment.
So I can speak more to K-5.
But there's no structure across the board of K through 5 has this amount of time with the teacher, this amount of lessons. 6 through 8 has this amount.
We have set the schedule.
Yeah, they do.
So if it's
Is
different.
it being followed, I guess is the question.
So we have a lot of administrators attending a lot of sessions, but if your administrator is on, you know that your administrator's on, and perhaps people are doing different things, and we can't fix what we don't know. So I would just encourage you to, if it does become a challenge, to reach out to that building administration after you contact the teacher. I can tell you that I have many elementary teachers that are meeting in small groups on a very regular basis. So although the total in-class participation is live synchronous 3 days a week, they're spending hours in small groups online, both for math and ELA.
Right.
So,
And this is not about the teachers. I mean, the teachers are doing a good job, and we appreciate everything they're doing. It's not that. It's just when I'm hearing from different parents that X amount of time by this kid, X amount of time by this kid, and it's all over the map. And there's no rhyme or reason, it doesn't seem like. And then piggybacking off of Darlene is, obviously for both the teachers and the parents, the families, if there's a choice, as you're all saying, where you have X amount, 25% of the teachers that want to teach online because they feel they're compromised per se, where does that correlate to being able to give everybody the choice? Now, you can't make everybody happy, but can we get closer to than where we are now?
and we don't know till we ask, right? So if, for example, we have all middle school teachers who want to be off, that doesn't necessarily help us K-12.
Right.
And so we haven't asked, are you immune compromised, or or family members immune compromised? Because the board's decision to go remote, people knew that they could do what they're doing. On another note, we have had a couple of people off on FMLA during this time. That's been a little bit of a challenge for whatever reason that they're off, so.
All right, I'd say let's move past this here. We can get back to more specific discussion when we get to the action item.
Thank you, Ms. Pastor.
Can I just say one thing before we
Sure,
depart? And as we approach that next set of discussion, as I'm thinking about all this, no one has to say how hard this is for everybody. But I think what our role as a board is to set broad expectations. And these are professionals, we hire them to teach, we hire them to manage buildings. They're the ones that need to operationalize and execute on this. So I think the further we stay away from micromanaging number of kids in a class or how many times we spray a table, whatever, the better. And that's just my opinion. And if we get lost in the weeds, we're not going to do them any favors. We need to give them expectations like measuring performance of teachers and in a remote situation. That would be one. But I think we need to be real careful about getting in the weeds and trying to operationalize when that's why we hire these people.
Yeah, good point.
Right.
Even though some educators are in our midst here right now and could probably do it as well. Thank you.
Yep. Moving on to item G, our consent agenda, which consists of minutes from the September 22nd, 2020 regular meeting, October 6th, 2020 special meeting, the HR update, and the disbursements for September 2020.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Pomponia. Do we have a second?
Support.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Any discussion on those consent items? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? All right, motion carries. All right, here we go. Action item number 1, under item H is the approval of the mail meter lease. Ms. Pastor, do you wish to speak to this?
Yes, so I'll be speaking on behalf of Barb Wilson. Nick, am I loud enough?
If you can speak up a little bit more.
Come over here.
I'll just go to the mic.
Okay.
Okay, the current lease for the data pack mail meter lease expires on 10/25/2020. 3 quotes were obtained for a 5-year lease on a new mail meter. All vendors provided consortium pricing. Quadient, formerly Neopost, proposed a lease of 60 months on a I'm sure I'm saying it wrong. IX7DS mailing system, total cost per month proposed $311.50 for 60 months, annually $3,738, and a lease duration of $18,690. UTEC proposed a lease of 60 months on a Post-Based Pro DS postage system. Total cost per month proposed $319 for 60 months, annually $3,828 for the lease duration, $19,140. Pitney Bowes proposed a 60-month lease for Send Pro P Series meter. Their proposed cost per month, $827.37 for 60 months, annually $9,928.44 for a lease duration of $49,642.20. UTEC is the recommended vendor, even though the cost is $90 higher per year. For the minimal cost difference, UTEC has gained our recommendation for additional reasons that are difficult to financially quantify: 6 years, excellent, dependable service, equipment durability, and overall satisfaction. Teresa uses this machine on a daily basis. If you have any questions, she'd probably be happy to speak.
Any questions for staff? Dr. Pomponio?
Yes, I just don't know what it's used for besides just mail, and what are all the things that we're doing through mail that we're not doing online? I mean, is it big packages we're sending out, or is it?
So a lot of things that we send out are report cards, mailers, but we also send CA60s to other school districts, and we receive those. In the spring, we spent quite a bit of money mailing packets home during the first closure. So we do a lot of things via email, but we do still mail things.
Okay, thank you. I know it saves money because if you go and add stamps on it, you're wasting money. Yeah.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll take a motion.
Mr. President, I make a motion to award the postage system lease to UTEC for the Post-Based Pro DS postage system for a duration of 60 months at a cost of $319 per month and a lease duration cost total of $19,140.
Thank you, Mr. Lamas. Is there a second? Mr.
Support.
Craig? Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. All right, action item number 2. This is
Senate
our
Bill- oh, sorry.
Approval of the mode of instruction. Ms. Pastor.
Sorry, jumped the gun. Senate Bill 027 was signed by Governor Whitmer on September 20th, 2020, and assigned PA 0165 on October 1st, 2020. Effective immediately, Section 98A of the law modifies the requirements for district PSA extended COVID-19 plans required in Public Act 149. Assurance number 8, 30 days after the approval of the plan under subsection 2, and each month thereafter, the district must, at a meeting of the board, reconfirm how instruction is going to be delivered during the 2021 school year. Tonight, the board must vote to satisfy this requirement.
Thank you, Ms. Pastor. The questions for staff?
Mr. President.
Mr. Green?
Ms. Pastor, just for clarification, for the viewing public, so whatever we decide tonight, if in 2 weeks, before our next board meeting, we have a board meeting before the November 9th, let's just say we choose to go face-to-face, and there's 2,500 cases or something ridiculous. In those 2 weeks, even though we've approved to put the plan in action for November 9th tonight, meeting satisfying this, are we married to that? Or can we say, look, there's 2,500 cases, we know what we said 2 weeks ago, but it's a different ballgame now? Or is it, oh, sorry, you said that, you have to go back to school November 9th and then wait another month to revisit it?
There's nothing in the legislation that prevents the school board from making a different decision at a different board meeting during the same month.
I knew that, I just wanted to make it clear.
It would just be a matter of you adding it to the agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Pastor.
You're welcome.
Smile, Ms. Pastor.
I am, can't you see it?
No. So am I.
So, Mr. President?
Mr. Green, Mr. Green, were you all done, I meant?
You just got uglier, Rick.
Were you all set?
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Lamas.
Always a compliment, no worries. So I'm going to put my stake in the ground here, and I think there's no right decision. We're going to all make the best one we can. I think the foundation for it needs just to be two things, and one is choice, because clearly there are people that want different stuff, and two, quality. And then I'll add a third, and that would be the execution, the safety and mitigating risk. And other than, so that said, face-to-face should be part of the formula. I think that Atlas should be a part of the formula, and then remote learning to the degree that's possible, the staff. So there's some continuity for the folks who want to continue the way they have been and stay home as they have for the last few weeks. I think that's the direction we should give the administration. And maybe there's a few details we should add to that, but I think getting much further past that is getting too prescriptive on how they can operationalize this. That's my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Lamas.
Mr. President,
Mr. Green.
I'm mostly along the same things of what Rick said, for sure. Choice, quality. I do think we have to add, if possible, that option for remote learning for parents that don't feel safe coming back, but still want the live teacher. And
I believe you mentioned that.
that's what I just said. I said, following along what Rick said.
You also said that you wanted to add that. I was just pointing out that he had already
But
added
it's
that.
something, but just say follow it.
I do not like this man sometimes, but he's a good friend of mine. Okay. I believe the only thing that I would say is I'm for a hybrid model for people that want that choice, but I'm for a partial hybrid model. I respectfully think that it's not overstepping our bounds not to ask that the class sizes are not 30, 35. You know, if we do like an AB model, which is one of the options, the partial return, 4 days a week, group A or group B, you're looking at, even if you have a class of 34 or something, you're gonna have at the most, 17, and I believe that is a better model if we choose to go to a hybrid model than the full, all-blown, everybody go at one time. But that's just my 2 cents, just to throw it out there on the table. But I do agree with the premises of Rick that the choice needs to be there. I think we also, again, I said it earlier, have to take into consideration what the Wayne County Health Department recommended, that a C means if we can do some sort of face-to-face if possible, to those who want it, but give the option to the others, that's maybe to the point that we're at. I'm not dismissing the fact that the numbers have went up a little bit and we're going into flu season, but this would give the people who want to stay in Atlas or remote that option, and the people who want face-to-face an option. Look, I'm well aware of the fact that the hybrid was the least amount, for the most part, minus the Atlas, of decisions from the parents. So people are polarized, just like anything else in this country. You have people want to go back full face-to-face. I understand your situation. I understand your situation if you're working and stuff and your reasons and you're not a teacher. I said it last week or 2 weeks ago, everybody's right. Your own personal, nobody up here can tell you what's right for your family. But on the other end, the people don't feel safe as remote. So, but the hybrid is, that combination or that compromise, and it's not gonna make everybody happy, but it's there. And if we still have that remote with teachers as an option, if that can be worked out, and the AB hybrid model, I feel that may be the way to go. So that's just my 2 cents.
Yes, Dr. Pomponia.
Yeah, I had some things written down, but I just feel like it's safety first, and then choice, and then quality. Because for safety, a lot of times people feel comfortable because it hasn't hit their home, but it's real. When you can't breathe and you're in ICU, and for those people, it's real. And for people who know people or been through it, and the way it seems to be heading, it seems like it's gonna get somebody if it doesn't get everybody sooner or later. But on the one hand, for safety and choice, the reason why I say choice is because I've spoken with a lot of teachers and parents. They've literally pulled their kids out because their whole position is their kids have to be in school. They're gonna go in poverty, they're gonna be homeless, they need their job. So there's a lot of real situations out there, scenarios that we have to try to look at and work around. And then you have the learning styles of the students who, the people with the IEPs or they can't function. They're teaching themselves some of the math, and they're literally failing when they've gotten straight A. So there's a lot of different scenarios out there. So I would hate to think that as I'm making a decision for all of these parents, that we don't give a choice. And I'm prepared to make a motion. I don't see hybrid as being given an option of fully remote or fully in school. So I have a different motion if I can make that, but I don't think that I would send my kid to school part-time and then bring him back online. That's defeating the purpose. So I would be in support of having those have a choice. Let's work it out, but it's still not safe out there. And I don't know what's to come the next month or two, but I'm prepared to give parents a choice, parents and teachers a choice.
Thank you. Mr.
But
Long?
just to kind of dovetail on Andy's and your comments, yeah, you're right, safety is in everyone's perception may be a little different, right? Or their willingness to tackle risk, so I agree with you about the choice idea. The risk is definitely there, and every parent has to make the decision for themselves.
Thank you.
Right.
Mr. Sage?
Going off of safety, I agree wholeheartedly. I lost my niece at 29 years old, Tina Stevenson, okay? And it's a mess, it's real. There's no question, and anybody out here in the board that this is real, it's not to be taken lightly, right? But I also have to ask myself, how long is this gonna go on? At what point are we considered safe? We stopped in March. We had the opportunity in September, and as a board, we made the decision to go remotely. That was the decision that was made, and that's where we're at now. But at what point? Is this gonna be 3 years from now? What's gonna change between now and January, February, when, is it a vaccine? Are you guys gonna get vaccine? Are we getting vaccinated? At what point are we gonna say enough? And we've gotta minimize the risk to the best of our ability. So giving the parents a choice, minimizing the risk to the best of our ability. Okay, I hate to say it, it's going to happen at some point. It's going to happen, whether it be a school, as we've all seen, whether it's a church, whether it's a business. It's around, and we've gotta do our best to minimize the risk, but live with it. So I am all for the safety, minimizing the risk, giving the parents a choice with a hybrid model. Getting the social interaction, yes, one death, they said one death is too many with COVID. No question. I don't disagree with that in any way, shape, or form. Same thing goes with suicide, same with depression. All of these aspects need to be taken in. So what is the best choice is what I have to ask myself. And it hits home hard with me, okay? With my niece, there's no question. And it weighs on everyone in this room wholeheartedly. And there's no right decision, but we're put in a position where we need to make the decision, and I'm also with you as far as the hybrid, where the parents and the teachers potentially have the option to do it remotely with a teacher. And then those that feel that they have to move into the classroom, that's what we do.
Thank you. Mr. Craig?
Thank you. So I guess just some of my thoughts for the group as we start to formulate some kind of a plan and some kind of a motion that we're gonna make tonight and move on this is, first is I saw what the survey said. I don't think we can go full face-to-face. I don't think that can be an option. That's just my opinion. Full face-to-face as an option, I think, is dangerous. I don't know what a person who took that survey was thinking when they checked that box and said, that's what I want. I know that when we talked about face-to-face in August, it was with 60% in the schools, right? Because 40% were supposed to go to the Atlas program and 60% were to go to face-to-face. Am I wrong there, Jill?
That was the survey that we gave parents.
That was the survey we gave parents, so that was the numbers we had assumed
Yes.
would be in a classroom, and we had assumed that we would be able to safely do that at that 60%, we'd be able to space some people out. I'm gonna assume that that's what those people meant when they said full face-to-face. To me, the only way to accomplish that is with a hybrid model, where you can deliberately split 50-50 and say, you come on this day, you come on that day. I agree, we have to offer that choice of remote instruction with a Southgate teacher. I think that has to be the other side of the option is that we allow those people who can't return, who don't feel safe to return, that option. Now, how do we afford that? That's where I gotta push it back to administration and say, if this is what we want, how can you make that happen? I don't like the deadline of November 9th. I think that's an arbitrary deadline that we just plunked in there or that just got put in. So my take on it would be to continue with virtual right now, work on improving virtual. One of the things I think that would improve virtual is if we had our teachers in the classrooms. Some of the struggles that I've heard from parents is they have a hard time contacting somebody when they're struggling to get on. I don't know if that would be a better solution if we had somebody in the classrooms or more people in the schools. I wouldn't be opposed to if staff needed to bring their kids in while they were teaching in the classroom. I wouldn't be opposed to that. And then increasing the screen time like you'd already kind of talked about, Jill. So I guess that would be my kind of thoughts on it is how do we challenge our staff? But I don't know that the November 9th is the day we got to do it by, because what if we're not ready by November 9th? What if our plan isn't in place yet? There's a lot of moving parts that we gotta say what we want to do, and then they got to go out and try and find all the parts to build that plane. They don't know who's coming back. They don't know what teachers are going to work. They don't know. They don't know how how we can operate that. And again, I'm going to go back to my original thinking is that I think we need to break this up and maybe treat each group differently. Maybe it's again, depending on the numbers, maybe K-5 gets a different thought process than either 6-8 or 6-12 even. I do respect, everybody's thoughts and opinions on this. I understand where everybody's coming from and why. And so I guess I would say that our limit needs to be a hybrid model. That would be our high point limit, would be a hybrid model, but I'd love to hear what everybody else has to say on it.
So I do agree with the full online remote as one option, but as the other option, face-to-face part-time hybrid, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because that's the only way you can limit those classrooms to be manageable sizes, is you take the people who want to come back and you say, hey, this is the hybrid model we're going to go with. Now, if it turns out that only 40% want to come back, then maybe we can expand it to be a different program. We don't know until we put down a contract in front of somebody and say, sign this because this is what you're going to be doing. We don't know what they're going to be doing. We got surveys, but surveys aren't contracts. Surveys aren't concrete. We've always offered Atlas. Atlas is, I can't say always, but for a while now we've offered Atlas. Although I think, and I'm going to defer to staff here, if somebody was failing in Atlas, didn't we force them back into a classroom? Wasn't that?
We tried real hard.
Yeah, so and we don't have that option now. So I hate saying Atlas is our only remote option when we used to have a fallback of we could push into a classroom if that wasn't working, where we can't really do that now because we're taking away that option from somebody to be remote. But yeah, I guess that would be, I think we set it up and say this is how we want to do it. We see who says, forget it, I'm staying virtual. If 50% say they're staying virtual and we're only dealing with 50%, maybe the hybrid model expands. Maybe we can, whatever we can do safely and comfortably, I think is where we need to go, and we can grow that. However, I think we need to maintain a full virtual model
Yeah.
Because what happens if we have to close a school down? What happens if half of a sports team tests positive and can't go to class? We gotta have a place to still be able to educate them. I can't have them sit at home for 2 weeks while they, get better and just figure it out. So how do we be everything to everybody, Jill? I guess that's, that's all we're asking for. How do we be everything to
It's a
everybody,
good start.
Yeah,
Mr. Lamas?
go ahead.
And I think we, through the discussion, pretty much have that feasibility with giving everybody something. But the November 9th start date with all these different pieces, and it can get complicated. Should we move it to like January so all the staff can have enough time to make those changes too? So that was the other thing I was.
I would just say they can bring it to us when they feel it's ready. If it's ready on November 1st, I'm ready to move on November 1st. But if you guys don't have something that you feel is viable and functional and have not gotten commitments from the people you need to get commitments from, mainly students and staff, I don't know how you can make all those decisions to put the things in place.
Right.
Mr. Lamas?
Yeah, so two things. The start date, I agree, leave that to these guys as to whether you can operationalize on what we're asking you to do. If, the one interesting thing about the timing is there's only a couple weeks before, a little more than a couple weeks before Thanksgiving. And then there's only a couple more weeks right after that. So there may be some advantage to making a change, not sooner than later, but November 9th or 10th or something around that, because we've got a short window that we're gonna be testing as opposed to a full 3 or 4 months. And then the only other thing that I think we might wanna understand is the classroom size from a safety standpoint. We'd need your guys' advice as to what that should look like, based on staffing capability and safety issues.
Mr. Sage?
And I agree and I understand with the timeline, but if we don't have some type of a timeline, this could go on forever. There has to be a timeline that we can work off of, whether it's phased in, whatever it may be, but there has to have structure. Otherwise, the parents are in limbo the entire time and have no idea what structure. We could
Right.
be in February and we say, oh, we're still not ready yet. It's not an option. There has to be some sort of a timeline, in my eyes.
Yeah, I agree.
So just to remind you that whatever you decide today, we still have to talk about in November and December, January, February, March, April, May. So, just to
So,
remind you.
Mr. Freitas, did you have anything?
Yeah, in Detroit where I teach, the parents were given the opportunity, like they said, you either had to be online or face-to-face, and you couldn't switch back and forth. So the parents now will have the option to change their minds come November 9th, or 14th in Detroit. But what the problem became is when administration let the children, or let the parents flip-flop in between. And that made it challenging for the teachers and everybody. Because parents learned online, they're like, oh my gosh, this is a lot harder than I thought. Having 3 children at a kitchen table, all the commotion was a lot more, and I wanna go back face to face. This is not feasible. I mean, I thought about breaking my laptop 4 or 5 times, pretty much every day.
Yeah.
I told my wife I'm gonna quit, and yelled at her once, and I was so frustrated.
Yeah.
And I get that. It's not, there's no right answer. But try to do the best we can, giving the parents a choice, keeping the children safe first, but also having a tangible deadline, because you could push it out. But also, it could come down, we could have 400 or 500 cases come up in a small district, and you have to have the option to say, we're going back remote. We're gonna pull it and go remote.
Right. Right.
Just as a matter of record, I just wanted to say that I fully embrace Mr. Lamas's suggestion, and in how we've all kind of accompanied that with our own comments and made that into even a bigger and better plan. It just needs a little bit more work, but I'm on board with that. Mr. Green?
So, a couple of other points, and I know I'm not playing on my phone, I'm actually answering questions or reading questions from people in the community, which are part of the emails that I'm getting too, or we're all getting. So, look, we know, and I'm talking to the community now, in general, is that we're not gonna make everybody happy, right? We're well aware of that. For every email I think that we've had, or it seems like bouncing these emails back and forth and phone calls, and I'll personally apologize to everyone. I emailed a lot of people back today, but there were so many emails, and, you know, this is, I know some people actually don't believe or don't know that this is not our full-time job. So, you know, I have to teach online all day also, and everybody else has to work, so I do apologize for that. But, you know, there's two nurses that I talk to regularly, and one is like, I don't know where they're getting the statistics from. This is, it's getting better, you know, and then another one, you know, says he sits on review boards and he says it's not getting better, and I've never argued about anything in 20 years, but then, you know, a school-related outbreak report from the Free Press is sent to us, and this and that, so we understand all that. This is where I think this remote with the teacher has been missed with us so far, that a lot of people are asking about, and if we can blend that into the choice model, now you're gonna get the remote with the teacher, some Atlas, and then the face-to-face. I do agree with Mr. Craig, and also what Rick asked about class sizes. I don't think we can go full face-to-face. That's just my opinion right now. I don't think 30 kids in a classroom going into flu season is smart. I know a lot of people disagree with me, and I totally understand that, but the hybrid model with the A-B model limits that class size. It makes it feasible to keep the 6 feet distance, at least easier. I'm well aware of the people who are opposed to it that say it's just a recommendation. Well, I hate that answer, that it's just a recommendation from the state. You know, if they say it's 6 feet or more, then we can't be 2 feet away from each other if we can help it. What that looks like moving through the hallways for the secondary would be for the Colt team to bring to us. Lunchtime, there's a lot of things to work out, I get it, but that at least gives us a better chance of keeping the social distance and giving everybody somewhat at least more options or a choice of what they're comfortable with, whether they want to come back hybrid. So yes, you're still going to be online with the hybrid model, I get it, but you're going to have some of that face-to-face instruction, and then we're going to have enhanced hybrid, right? If we're face-to-face, or if you have the hybrid, then you're going to be, if you can get the lessons, however that works out, you're going to be having more screen time, so you're still going to have that online component. I get it. For those that want to go full face-to-face, I get that you're not going to be 100% happy with that, but and I agree with Mr. Sage. Somewhere along the way, unfortunately, we're probably going to have a case, and we need to be ready to make that move quickly, and having the hybrid model possibly does that.
Yeah.
And it gives everybody, what they need, hopefully. And the teachers, too, and the teachers, yes, I'm a teacher. Yes, I admit that I'm a teacher, and I side with teachers a lot. And it's not really that I'm siding with teachers, but they're part of the stakeholders here too, and we have to consider them. We definitely have to consider their safety, and if they can teach remotely, or those that want to come back, or the safety measures for them. So we're concerned with the whole picture. And parents, like Andy Green's first priority is Carly Green. Should be, right? That's my daughter. That's my first priority. So everybody out there who's fighting for your family situation and your own child, I totally get it. We have to make a decision, which is a no-win situation, to try to do and develop a plan that we feel is safe and that we feel is giving you options to make you still believe in Southgate Public Schools and want to come here and work through this together.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion.
Please.
I promise you this is rough, and it's not perfect, but I'd like to make a motion to approve the Southgate Community School mode of instruction to be built on 3 pillars. First is mitigating risk and maximizing safety. Second is face-to-face choice for those parents who so choose, keeping in mind class size and other health department regulations to kind of govern the size of the classes and that mode of operation. 3, remote with teacher and including systematic assessment of execution and learning modalities. I made that up. And then finally, a plan to adjust to change when it is going to come. So I know that's broad, and maybe someone wants to add some detail to that, but that's,
Can I just read what I had? I said if I had something for two options.
Sure.
You can offer, point, sorry.
Yeah, that's the whole point is to
Yeah, I don't.
let's build from here.
Help me out.
Just a point of order, so there's a motion on the floor. It has to be supported before we do anything. That would be the first thing, and then the next thing would be is if somebody wanted to make an amendment to that, they would offer an amendment to that motion. We would have to then vote on the amendment, and that would have to be supported. We'd have to vote on the amendment, and then we would vote on the new revised motion, just a Robert's Rules of Order point. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so,
So,
I have to-
we
So
have a
there's a
motion.
motion. If there's a support, fine. If not, then we have to move on.
Right. And if there isn't a support, we can tackle that question again, right?
If there's no support, then that motion dies, and then we would wait for a new motion.
Okay. All right,
It died.
there isn't a second. Did you want to present it differently?
No, I think Ms.
Okay,
Pomponio
go ahead,
wanted to
please.
add to it.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Southgate Community School mode of instruction to be both options for teachers and families. Number one, face-to-face instruction, part-time hybrid. And number two, fully remote. Online would stay the same through Schoology, Atlas, or 21F. Face-to-face would be moving those students who opt for that selection to have with a part-time hybrid instruction with all of the safety and health protocols in place beginning on Monday, November 9th, 2020. That way we can work around that, but I figure we need a date in there.
I agree with the date.
I'm sorry, what was the date?
November 9th, 2020.
Could you read that one more time?
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to approve the Southgate Community School mode of instruction to be both options for teachers and families. Number one, face-to-face instruction, part-time hybrid. And number two, fully remote with a Southgate teacher. Online would stay the same through Schoology, Atlas, or 21F. Face-to-face would be moving those students who opt for the selection to have a part-time hybrid instruction with all of the safety and health protocols in place beginning on Monday, November 9th, 2020.
Thank you, Dr. Pomponio.
Thank you.
I'll support that for purposes of discussion.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right,
So
go
let
ahead
me-
with your
I know
discussion. Yeah,
Joe,
Ms. Pastor, did you?
Jumping at the bit, but I want to point out that Schoology isn't an online platform by itself. It really has to have a teacher behind it. So Atlas
And
would
I
be an
added Southgate
online
teacher.
platform,
It's-
Schoology.
I see it as part of the motion, but I mean, it's a function of,
Yeah, it's a function of remote.
Did you have something to add or to correct or?
So
does that motion offer problems?
So when we offer teachers a choice to teach remotely, we may not have enough teachers teaching in person to offer a true hybrid. My concern with the language is that it makes it sound like we're going to be able to allow teachers to teach remotely. If you look at the results, it's 50-50. We will not be able to staff for a hybrid model if we truly offer that option.
Can I delete teacher then?
What?
Mr. President,
Yeah,
I'd like to offer an amendment to the motion to remove the portion about teachers having an option in or out.
so could we read that, the new motion then?
Well, you would need a support for
Yeah,
my
I
motion.
just need
Support.
I just want a clarification how that would read.
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Southgate Community School mode of instruction to be both options for families. Number one, face-to-face instruction, part-time hybrid. And number two, fully remote. Online would stay the same through Schoology, Atlas, or, fully remote with the Southgate teacher. Online would stay the same through Schoology, Atlas, or 21F. Face-to-face would be moving those students who opt for this election to have a part-time hybrid instruction with all of the safety and health protocols in place beginning on Monday, November 9th, 2020.
Was that read like you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then you had a second, and Mr. Lamas, for that, supporting that amendment?
So now we can discuss that
Yeah, so
amendment.
now we'll discuss where we're at now.
I just have one
Amendment.
question on the last piece of that, all the health protocols and all that stuff. I don't know that that's necessary, that's kind of an assumption, but, and what is the difference? the third option where we're using Atlas and like you also mentioned a
Oh,
hybrid.
21F?
You can switch to hybrid, you mentioned?
Well, 21, no, I'm saying that they're gonna move, the people who wanna go face-to-face can move from there to the part-time hybrid, but the 21F is from the EMC students, so that's
Okay,
where they got that additional
Okay.
online.
all right.
So,
Mr. Green?
Dr. Baker Herring, you're on the spot. I mean, you're on the
Could you
spot.
go to the mic?
You're our curriculum director and our superintendent. You're hearing all this, I mean, what's your initial thoughts? Is this going through your head, this is a nightmare, or once we see the figures, is this feasible? As for teachers having the option, folks, if they have FMLA or COVID, they can opt out anyway, but maybe this keeps them back for that remote portion. So how's your brain scrambling through all this? Well, so is Jill's, but.
Scheduling's making me a little nervous when I think about scheduling, but I mean, we'll definitely do our best.
Okay,
Do you mind if I add on to that?
absolutely.
question? Can you give us a level of confidence? Because that's equally important.
Real and fake.
We know you'll do your best, there's zero doubt. But if you're our best, and that can only be 5%, then we need to reconsider that.
I don't know if I could really give a number, but I guess my concern is the unknown of how many staff really need to not be in person. Because I have no idea what that number is, I don't feel I could really give you a percentage on my level of confidence because of that piece that's missing. I feel like that's a big factor that's gonna really determine what the schedule will look like and what options parents really will have. Like maybe a K-5 option would be very doable, but 6-12 might not be nearly as doable. I just don't know what those staff members, the makeup would be.
And what would it take for you to get to that point?
Probably knowing exactly who would not be in place and then kind of building the schedule from there.
And when could you know that?
Like,
Um,
I think there's two factors here. One is you gotta know what teachers are gonna do, okay? Then you gotta know what families are gonna do. And once you get that in writing, not in a survey, not in an email, not in a public comment, I would actually honestly write up a contract form and make those families commit to that process for doing it. And then you can start building back from there. That's why I'm nervous about the November 9th date. There's only so many hours in a day. There's only so many days in a week. And this isn't something you can get the answers on November 8th and start on November 9th. So that's why I'm nervous about the date. I don't have a problem with it being in there right now because it's so far in the future. We can modify it. We can meet and modify things. But I think there's so many unknowns, you just don't know.
I agree.
But
Any other questions for staff while they're at the podium?
Sean?
John? Mr. Sage?
Can I pose a question?
Yeah, of course.
Was this not discussed with the co-team at the beginning?
Yeah,
At the very beginning, when we
Right.
all went over this, we talked about this option, correct?
you got it.
So once the decision was made, we just cut that off, and so we have discussed it previously. So we do have a little bit of experience with it. So we're going back to that table that we started with
The AB schedule.
essentially in July.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, I have one.
Yeah, Mr. Green.
For Ms. Pastor. This is just me thinking. So if this is the teacher in me thinking, I'm teaching Monday and Tuesday, Thursday and Friday if we approve the hybrid plan for those of the teachers that are going
Wednesday.
back.
And Wednesday, because you're online on Wednesday.
But Wednesday, let me finish, dude.
You're all day, you're every day.
Wednesday, you're online. Are you gonna require somebody to come into the school Wednesday if they're teaching online, or can they stay at home? What's your thought process?
So right now, we are not requiring teachers to come into the building, as Mr. Craig pointed out. We do have many teachers that are coming into their classrooms. They are finding that that is more useful than being at home. So we will be working out the details, but that may be a plus for some teachers to have that day to teach from home or to do pre-recorded and I know that some people hate this word because Dr. Baker Herring uses it a lot, but we could do some asynchronous work. We could do small group instruction. There are options for Wednesdays.
So, just from experience from another district that actually has this hybrid model, they thought that same thing on Wednesday, but Wednesday's supposed to be the deep cleaning day. So how can you have a deep cleaning in the whole school if people are in the school?
We have never said deep cleaning because we believe that by saying that, it means that we're not cleaning on Mondays and Tuesdays or Thursdays and Fridays. I think that's the wrong impression to give. It really is about staying in a practice of being remote in case tomorrow or Monday or the next day we have to go 14 days quarantine to shut down. That's the purpose in my mind, to stay in that practice of being remote on Wednesdays.
I'm glad you
I
made
agree.
that clear to me because I was under the impression of every hybrid model I've seen that almost every other district I've heard of called Wednesday a deep cleaning day. So at least that clears it up for me, so.
Can't say you're
But I
doing
agree
nothing.
with Jill.
Can't say you're doing nothing.
110%. It's being cleaned on a daily basis.
You gotta have a reason.
We have to touch high-touch surfaces every 4 hours.
Absolutely.
It's,
Absolutely.
okay.
So are we close to,
I think it would be appropriate to call a question on the amendment
All right.
first.
All right, then, let's call the question on the amendment. We had a motion on the amendment by Mr. Craig, a support by Mr. Lamas. So, all those in favor of the amendment being added to the motion, signify by saying aye.
aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Now we have the original motion is modified.
Correct. Now we have a motion on the table.
We could discuss that or act on it.
Any further discussion on that motion? All right, well, let's call the question then. Read it one more time.
I would like to make a motion to approve the Southgate Community School mode of instruction to be both options for families. Number one, face-to-face instruction, part-time hybrid. Number two, fully remote with a Southgate teacher. Online would stay the same through Schoology, Atlas, or 21F. Face-to-face would be moving those students who opt to the selection to have a part-time hybrid instruction with all of the safety and health protocols in place beginning on Monday, November 9th, 2020.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We have 470 people watching right now on YouTube
Can I add
streaming.
something, Mr. President? I think before we leave here, we need,
I supported hers.
I mean, I hate to say this, but we need another survey to see how many parents want to go remote.
Well, again, that's, to me, that's not a survey, but, well, sorry.
No, I totally disagree. We need to know the numbers of who's doing where. We need to know, because these people did not get part of the survey, or whatever our survey is, that we do not know who would want now to go remote with a teacher. I think that changes the rules of the game a little bit. And I totally think that we need something to get that feel so we know where the numbers lie.
It's not appropriate to discuss it, I don't think, right at this moment.
Well,
because we're
really,
past
before
that.
you approved it, you should have had the discussion in the
We
motion.
actually
You didn't give me-
discussed it, we had discussion, and I just had to repeat it when somebody asked to call the question.
How are they gonna know how are they gonna know how many people are in what group?
I'm not
of
saying
you
that
on
you're
the
wrong.
survey?
I'm saying that right now is not the time to discuss it.
So when
maybe
are we
during-
gonna discuss it? November 1st
We're gonna be meeting again at another meeting next week. Perhaps we can add that to that agenda ahead of that. We're meeting at 6:30 at the superintendent meeting.
Okay.
Right now, we're on to action item number 3, though, which is the,
Mr. Lamos.
Well, if your discussion wasn't allowed, I shouldn't say anything either. No, really, it's just, Robert's Rules of Order, I know what I wanted to say, but that's okay.
There's
They'll operationalize this.
there is also comments at the end. that we
Yeah,
can-
there's an opportunity at the end for
Sure.
comments and information.
Announcements.
I was just gonna say, then we'd leave, at the end of the meeting or not?
Yeah, at the end of the meeting.
Okay, that's fine.
All right. Thank you, guys. Action item number 3 is the approval of the concrete replacement services.
Enclosed with this action item is a recommendation letter from Plant Moran Cressa and a summary of official RFP details. In summary, the project team is recommending Royal Cement for the concrete replacement services. This award recommendation is for a yearly unit price for up to 5 years. This can be bond work or general concrete work. It allows us a 5-year price to do any concrete work over the next 5 years.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Mr. Lamas?
I know zero about concrete, other than it hurts when your head hits it. And the difference in the pricing is astounding. I mean, if you look at just the remove the 4 inches, it's $1.75 to $3.75 for Royal, and it's every bit of $6.96 for DSP. Do we know why there's such a spread there, or what the heck that is?
I don't know, Royal is a local cement company out of Lincoln Park. I'm not positive, but
So my only question was, it's such a weird, incredible difference in price. I thought maybe something would be wrong.
President?
Rob Kokoski
Okay, all right.
is the one that set the
All right.
RFP and did the interviews.
Okay.
Rick, I can offer a speculation, and when you're looking at bids, when somebody puts together a bid, they generally come up with their bottom line number, and then they work back, and they can change numbers so that the end number stays the same, but their unit numbers can be different, depending on what they think might happen in the future for changes. So you're not changing your overall total, but if you think you're gonna be asked to remove more concrete at some point, you might up the price for removing concrete and lower the price for placing it. Your bottom number stays the same, your total number stays the same, but in the future, you can go back to your unit pricing and say, oh, you want me to take out another, parking lot? This is my price for it. Once you do that, you're creating a unit price for everything in your
Got
bid.
it.
So,
I see.
so sometimes they play with numbers I can't say that's the case here. I can only tell you what I know about
Yeah.
the bidding process, so that might be part of it.
Any other questions?
Can I pose a question to Jason going off of that?
Oh, I can try.
In regards to what you're stating then, is there a benefit to having an agreement?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's part of every bid. Every standard bid has all the unit pricing that they put in. You get a bottom line number, but then you can also go back, and that's in case we decide we're gonna not remove some concrete, or we're gonna add some removal of concrete. Then we go right to the unit price. They don't get to rebid the whole thing. We just go right to their line and delete it. That's the way contracts usually work with bidding, so.
All right.
I'd like to make a motion authorizing the superintendent, subject to the review and approval of the school district council, to award the concrete replacement services to Royal Cement through 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Lamas.
Support?
Supported by Mr. Craig. Any further discussion on this action item? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you, motion carries. Item I, employee representatives. Any employee representatives wish to speak tonight? All right, and then we're going to item J, information and announcements.
Mr. President,
Mr. Green.
I think we need a survey. Thank you.
I agree with you.
Can you clarify
In all
that?
honesty, I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding. I think we need a survey with that component. Folks, I know that the parent page is gonna be blown up. Yes, I read the parent page because I'm a parent. I don't comment on it. I understand the passion, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. Every one of you are right with your feelings. We're doing the best that we can. Nobody in here ran to be a medical expert. I mean, we came in here trying to help out schools and the children in our community, and this got thrown on all of us. So we know there's not an easy answer. We know there's not a right answer, but we're trying to get an answer that can be safe and can give parents choices, and we're doing the best that we can. Everybody up here, we're doing the best that we can, from every school board member, every teacher, every parent, you're doing the best that you can. The administration, everybody's trying to do the best that we can. And just because we disagree on some things, I would just ask this community to pull together on these chat boards and with each other and show some civility to one another. And you can agree to disagree respectfully. And that's, we've disagreed up here plenty of times. So that's just my hope for all of us to understand that we're in it together, and that you understand that we are not sitting on our butts doing nothing. We are not, not giving you information. I know some people think that, but sometimes we don't have the information yet. And we don't want to give out information until we get some things from the Wayne County Health Department or what we know the direction is from the state. So just because we're not talking every single day doesn't mean that we're not behind the scenes answering phone calls, talking to each other, answering emails, looking at the data and trying to figure this all out. And so let's just understand we're all in it together. Thank you.
Mr. Craig?
Thank you, Mr. President. So, if everybody's paying attention, watching at home, understand that what we did on this, in a football term, we punted. We did not clearly make a call, and we left the administration with a lot of work to do here. We've tasked them with attempting to make everybody happy and serve all the things that we want done, and in a short time frame. We didn't just say we're going to go remote, we're going to go face-to-face. Those are easy things. We didn't just say we're going to go do a hybrid model. Again, that's a simple thing. We're making them pick. So we've left a lot of work for administration to do here, and for that I apologize to administration. Administration is going to have to get concrete answers from people to decide what they're going to do. So this is where we get to put it back on the families. You have to put your name down on a piece of paper and say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to disagree with Mr. Green in saying that we need a survey. We need something that we have a default, and we have to fill out a little bit more what each of those things mean. This is what remote means. This is a snapshot in time. Our motion was a snapshot in time. We might get some feedback from administration that we've asked them to find a purple unicorn, and they can't do it. And we might have to revise what we want to do and how we do it. And just keep that in mind as we go through the next couple of weeks, that we are all trying to do what's best for everybody. And in doing that, we may do some things that not everybody agrees with. We might say we're going to do something and not be able to deliver. And that's what I'm a little bit concerned about right now. But we've all got a direction right now. We're going to see where those numbers lie. And then once we know what those numbers are, we can start making some firmer decisions and do that. So just understand that we are in a fluid situation, trying to do what's best for everybody, trying to serve everybody's needs and meet everybody's expectations. So, thank you.
Mr. Sage?
And just to the viewing audience, I want to thank the administration for all the work that they're putting in, as well as the teachers. When we talk about uniformity, it's not about the teachers not doing their job, because the teachers are absolutely doing their job. It's just keeping it structured for all the kids so it's similar, because I hear that from all different parents all the time. I want to thank the parents that are up at 9, 10 o'clock at night still doing lessons with their kids, whether they work during the day and they got home doing it, or they've done it all day long. So it's not easy for anybody. Everybody up here has the best interest of the children at heart, as well as the safety. So we could say that remote is the safest. We know that. Is it the best? We don't know. We're doing the best we can up here, and we've said it time and time again. We put in countless hours, and it's thankless, and we understand that. But we're doing the best for the kids. And again, thank you to the parents at home with the kids. Thank you to the teachers. Thank you to the administration and to the board up here. That's it.
Dr. Pomponio?
Thank you, Sean. Piggybacking on that, thank you, board. I mean, I know that it's tough to consider, all the things that we had to think about, like the learning. Oh my God, if a student missed one day of class when they're sick, there's a whole lot of information that they're learning or they're missing on that one day. So that was weighing on my mind. All of that information, are they getting full quality instruction? Are they getting all the instruction? So thinking about that, worrying about the safety of the teachers and the students, and the students with compromised health issues, and so all of that, these board members had to think about, day in and day out, plus with their own students. So they're thinking about everyone first, you know, and with their own students and their own children. But, you know, definitely we have to thank the Colt team, social worker, special ed director, working with special ed students, and just everyone working together. And like Andy said, hopefully we can work together as a community, because, you know, I've heard of some parents leaving and going off to different schools, and, you know, hopefully we can help most of the situations. I mean, we're not doing it haphazardly, but we're doing it in small steps with the hybrid and part-time, but keeping the consistency of the online. But we're trying to make it work as we're learning new information about COVID-19. So that's the main thing too. So, and like Jason said, it's all fluid, but we're thankful for the hard work that everyone's put into it. And I think about it all the time, and I think about daily what the teachers are going through, the students. I know there's some students struggling bad. But if we can stick together and communicate and just work as a community, I think we can get through it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freitas.
I'd like to thank all the parents out there who are going above and beyond, trying to be a teacher, a technology person, and just struggling being a parent, everything. It's a lot of work. I'm struggling myself. I have to apologize to my wife. I've used her as a sounding board, and she's listened to me vent and complain about every single thing, so I have to apologize to her. But as far as what Mr. Green said about the Facebook parent page, it's so easy to complain and to be negative, but we have to support each other in this whole thing. The teachers are doing the best they can. The parents are doing the best they can. If you have some suggestions to help somebody, please offer those, because there's so much negativity in the world right now. We can always use some positive. And just seeing the faces of the children liking it. I'm going to go home tonight, and one of my children will say, "Dad, that's a great choice." Another one will be like, "No, Dad, I wanted to be home the whole time." You can't make everybody happy. We can only do the best what we can. So I appreciate everyone's patience in this, and especially the Colt team. They have a huge task in front of them, and it's not going to be easy. So let's try to get through this together. Southgate community is a great community. We rally around each other a lot. So let's keep up the good work.
So I just have, I guess, two kind of perspectives. One's a personal one and one's a business one. And COVID threw a curve to every single business on this planet. There is no business model that has been immune, no pun intended, to this virus. And I watch my clients every single day punt, trying to figure out what the heck to do in the next quarter, next 2 quarters, next 3 quarters. And no one has all the answers, but they're making their best bets with the limited investment and budgets that they have, as we are. So I think we're in the same boat. It's not often that public sector has to make these kind of adjustments and are faced with this kind of situation. And overall, we're not a real flexible business model, but we're doing enormously good stuff with everyone in the district, including everyone sitting up here. And secondly, one of the things that influenced my decision was this last week, we had our two eldest grandkids in our house. And they were, when I had to leave the meeting the other night was one of those incidences, but helping them manage their remote learning, while I was doing my business and my wife was doing hers, I got a good taste of what all of our families are going through right now. So hopefully we've made some good decisions tonight, and we'll look to the administration to guide us on how to operationalize this. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everybody.
I also wanted to thank the parents for being patient and understanding, the staff for your continued commitment to Southgate Schools and the hard work of this team, our board for working hard to help formulate this, and also for meeting in person tonight on rather short notice. Specifically, I'd like to thank Mr. Green, our vice president, who's given me almost daily counsel on this whole process as we navigate forward. It's always interesting to get his insight as a teacher and as a father of a student in the district, so I appreciate that. Thank you. And with that, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mr. Lamas,
Support?
Mr. Craig, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned.
Good job.